Hello, hello. This is Tanya, and I am back with another guide. This time, the guide is on brand management and protection tips for virtual community builders. And virtual communities are becoming the hot thing now, and they go beyond thinking about, like Facebook groups or so. I'm talking about full-fledged virtual interactive communities where there is not just chat or like a forum, but it's actually a community. And of course, it's online, it's virtual, but there is a community where we're not just meeting in Zoom, but a place where you can create a space, a personalized space that shows your brand personality, but also is personalized for your clients, your audience, your community. And actually, I am a fan of, and if you've been a part of my community, you know that I love, 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 and use Go Brunch. So we will be talking about Go Brunch today. But if you haven't checked out Go Brunch, I'll give you some information a little bit later afterwards, but it is what I consider the ultimate platform that you should use if you truly want to create an immersive, interactive virtual community. So, regardless of whether your community is just a more of a forum type of community where it is just mostly text or the like, or you have something that is a hybrid that has video, text, or it's a full-fledged immersive community where there are possibly like rooms and areas to go to. It's very personalized, and that includes appearance and interaction as well as aspects of having video and the like, and interactive things that maybe people can watch or they can listen to while they're in this immersive space, and text as well as if you're talking through chat or there is a forum. So I'll talk about some examples of that, and maybe let's get a little clear of that too. So maybe if we're just talking about a chat community, then we're talking about something that's similar to like a Facebook group or the like. If we're talking about a little bit of a hybrid type of community, maybe we're thinking of Circle, or the type of community you would have with Mighty Networks. And in these communities, there's that chat forum, there are spaces where you can have video information. You can even host like your workshops, your classes within this, but it's still more of there is a platform that's visual to watch videos, but not quite immersive as if you feel like you're inside of it. So that is what you may find with like a circle type of community or Mighty Networks, where it's very interactive. It's just not immersive. Then there's a community platform like Go Brunch, where you are immersed inside of rooms and spaces where you feel like you're actually in the space with someone else, the way that it's visually designed. You are in the space, and you also are able to view videos, interact with documents and the like. So again, just a community of text. Maybe you can grab some documents, see some videos. The next one, you could really have classes, a little bit more interaction with community members. And then there's one where you're immersed in to the community. Okay, so enough about that. let's get into it. So all of those communities, a lot of this applies. This is more specific to immersive communities where you're immersed, and then the hybrids, like I was speaking of, the mighty networks, the circles. Okay, so this is actually a recording. So I'm creating a guide. This is a guide, a recorded guide that is similar to the live workshops that I give on this topic. So this is for your reference and the like. So we won't be worried about so much about the chat. You can always comment below the video on the side wherever comments are accepted, and you know that you can come to the Q&A sessions if you have any questions, and we can talk about this, and there'll be a lot more resources as well. Again, this is just the first initial guide that'll give you like the legal considerations for virtual communities 101. Okay, so this is just a nice reference guide for information. Ooh, I'm going to be quiet for a second so you can hear me. Ambulance, city life, or any life. There's always ambulances everywhere. I live near a hospital. All right. So the key with this, though, is that you're not allowed to record this talk, this presentation. You can definitely take screenshots, limit the screenshots you take. You don't want to recreate the entire presentation, but there'll actually, excuse me, be some points where I'll say, hey, screenshot this, if you want to have it for your records. Of course, you can always view this video again, but there may be things that you want to take note of. So you can definitely screenshot that. And that is mostly it. All right, let's get to the legal, because I have to give you my legal disclaimer. So this is not legal advice, all right? This talk contains information that makes you aware of some of the legal considerations that business owners encounter as a daily part of operating their business, as you may encounter when you are hosting and just holding events, putting things up, all the like, if you have a virtual community. So this is for your virtual community business. While I am a licensed attorney, I am not your attorney, all right? So participating in or listening to this talk and reading, accessing, engaging with any associated workbook or guide, worksheets, checklists, whatever would be associated with this talk, it does not form an attorney-client relationship with you and I, nor does it create a contract for or rendering of legal services, okay? And again, it's not legal advice and it should not be construed as such. It is strictly for educational purposes and use only. If you need legal advice, you should contact an attorney in your jurisdiction, and preferably one that is familiar with your industry and virtual communities, or at least online businesses. All right, legal out of the way. Let's get to it. Don't know me by now. Hopefully you do, but I'm Tanya, and I teach digital creators and online business owners how to legally and strategically protect their brands. I'm a mentor and educator, intellectual property attorney. I used to own a boutique fitness studio. I was a former fitness business coach. I love doggies so much that I even became certified as a dog trainer. Speaking of dogs, Knox, my cutie patootie, my little pooch. I'm Knox's personal assistant, and you'll always hear me say this because I know it's true in my heart and mind. I am his favorite out of everyone that he knows and has ever had contact with. But let me tell it, that is the truth. Another truth, though, for sure, is I am an avid runner and lover of cheesecake. And yes, non-dairy, gluten-free cheesecake. I like all cheesecakes, but mostly I need to stick to that one, dietary reasons. But Another thing that I love that may be a little unconventional, but I know it's not, is that I binge Bluey almost daily. It used to be daily now. I've seen so much of Bluey that I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We got to get some work done here. In any case, that is me. So let's get on with the talk. Today, we are going to discuss things that are very important to virtual community builders, right? And hosts, you. Brand identity, brand management and protection, member management and protection, intellectual property management, intellectual property protection, data privacy, artificial intelligence, AI, and of course, other legal considerations. First thing I want you to do while we're going through this is I want you to think of your community as you would an actual physical location, okay? As if it were a brick and mortar location that you had that people were coming into, that they were physically coming into. And then I want you to think of it as your home, because as you think of it in these manners, then it will help you with the brand protection and the legal protection strategies that you have for your community. All right, so we're going to talk about access first. So, things to think about with access is how is your community accessed? Do they access it through a link? Can they only access it through your website? Is it open access? Do they need a password? So you want to think about how your community is accessed when you're thinking about your strategies, because depending on the manner of access, depends on how much you need to have your community protected. Okay. So with that, you also have to think of, again, who has access. Is it public? Is it private? Is it members only? And where do they have access? So when we're talking about virtual communities, a lot of times there's virtual co-working, right? So do they have access to all the rooms, or is it just one co-working room? Is it during certain hours that they can come in, or is it 24/7? So can they go through your entire website, your virtual site? Where do they have access? Or more or less, where are they restricted from going, right? You have to think of it in that manner. And then what do they have access to? Again, do they just have access to virtual co-working? Do they just have access to a few videos? Do they have access to a chat? Do they have access to DMs? Can they DM just you or DM everyone? Is the chat open to the public? What resources are they able to view, consume, and even what resources are they able to download? And then again, what are they doing when they do have access? Okay. Are they speaking? Are they looking at something? Are they grabbing and downloading resources? Are they interacting with others? Are they uploading things? Okay. So you need to think about that as well. And what happens when their access is terminated or suspended? Okay. Is it temporary? Do they not have access to everything? Are they able to ever come back? Are they just blocked a little bit, blocked them here and there? Or are they blocked from accessing anything? And how does that impact those who aren't suspended or terminated? Do you have to change passwords, the like? You have to think of these things. So that's really the number one thing to actually think of is access to your community? Because again, these questions, when you answer them, are going to help you figure out what legal protocols you need to have in place. Because when we're talking about access, you want to make sure to eliminate, deter unlawful activity, inappropriate activity, people harassing others, people, even your members, stealing your stuff, people sharing your stuff. So sharing and stealing are different. Someone stealing it and, trying to profit off of it, gain something from it. Sharing it could just be that they grab something from you and decide, oh, I'm going to send this, to my friends, to my family, or something like that, when it's supposed to be members only. And then do they also allow others to participate? Because as you see, I'm saying there's a liability, because think about it in this manner. You have a fitness class, right? And they're only supposed to be there taking the class with you. They've signed a waiver so they know that the dangers that could happen, the legal issues. But they have other people in their homes, in their room, taking this fitness class who have not signed the waivers, right? So that's a liability if you're allowing them to have it open to others. So it's not even the situation of like, oh, you didn't pay for this or you're not a part of our community. The issue would be that it may be a liability, because if you're teaching a fitness class and maybe someone gets hurt, but they're not even supposed to be viewing or consuming your content, your video, your class, then they may sue you because you're teaching this class. And particularly if this is not an on-demand one and they know, it's live and you know that they're in there, then and that way you may be given permission for them to be there. So you want to be very careful. And again, think about what happens when you are giving access to your community and the resources in your community. All right. So, with access being at the top of our minds, and just in general, who the community is for, we are going to talk about just elements of your virtual community. The first is brand identity, right? So, when you are coming up with your community name and the essence of what your community is, the brand, right? What you want to do, of course, is to define and establish a strong brand. If you are really creating this community as a part of your business and really putting the effort to make it a brand, this is more than just a web page, right? This is more than just some group on social media that you just happen to come to, you don't put much thought into. We're talking about a full-fledged brand of yours. So because this is a integral part of your business, you want to treat it as such, right? So you want to define and establish that strong brand by making sure that you have come up with a strong community name, and even the theme, again, the essence of what your community is. And that includes the values as well as the look and all of the pieces to it, right? So this goes beyond more than just the aesthetics. It's the theme, the essence, the vibe, what your community is, okay? So the first thing is to make sure that you come up with a name so that your brand is distinct and it doesn't infringe upon others, okay? And when we're thinking about communities, especially now, the virtual communities, especially the immersive ones, they're newer, right? The technology is coming into being where this is accessible to many. And not only is it accessible, people are really seeing the benefit of having these immersive communities. So one of the things when we're thinking about what brand, you do have to distinguish yourself, just like you would distinguish your brand if it were a product or the like, right? Or I'm going to use fitness because, again, remember, I used to be a fitness business coach, and I also do a lot with fitness. But you think about boutique studios, and there's, if you're familiar with it, let's see, we'll think about Orange Theory and F45. These are type of boutique fitness studios which have like high intensity interval training and the like, or functional fitness, whatever. But at the core base is fitness, right? And at the next base, it does have to do with more of a higher intensity, sometimes fitness training, a specialized fitness training, but the concept is fitness, okay? So you're going to find a lot of communities that do the same thing that you do. So maybe you are doing a health and wellness type of community, or a business community that offers training and education and some group coaching, okay? So these are general concepts, but you want to make it unique to you and distinctive. So having that general concept for a community, everyone having videos, some way to access it, everyone sitting around, co-working, those are concepts. So you doing that would not be considered infringement, or if someone does something similar in the concept or the same concept, that's not what we're talking about infringing, but we're talking about having the exact same type of, definitely the same name or something similar, or your rooms look exactly alike. It's just a carbon copy. So one, you don't want to make your community a carbon copy of what's out there, right? It should be unique to you, unique to your values, your brand values, your business values. Again, the essence, because it's just in any brand, in any business, what sets you apart from others in your market? Why would someone come to your community versus someone else? Why would I go to one fitness studio that's right next door instead of going to a fitness studio that's right next door on the other side of me? So if my residence was in the middle, there's one on the right and there's one on the left. I just have to step out of my door, which would cause me to go to the one on the left versus the one on the right. And you have to think of it that way. All right. So make sure that your brand is distinct, and that goes from the name to the essence, the whole theme to what you're offering, just your community's identity. All right, and when you do that, a big, big, big thing, we're talking about access too. Remember, access is at the top of our mind whenever we're doing this, as well as the essence of the community. But you want to make sure you create brand guidelines, okay? And we'll go into that a little bit more. Then you want to be consistent in your branding. And so this goes within your community, as well as when you are marketing and just talking about your community as well. Again, this community, you're thinking of it as like it is a brand, but like a maybe physical location that someone's entering into. Think about how you brand that. Just because it's online doesn't change that at all. If anything, it makes it more important to give it that unique branding identity. And to have a unique and distinctive brand identity, you must be consistent with it so people can recognize that it is you, and you are the one that they want to engage with, interact with, that what you have is what they want to consume and where they want to spend their dollars and time. All right. And with that, so when you're creating this brand, you as well want to use your brand properly. Okay. You use your name properly. You keep that theme going throughout. Again, we're talking about being consistent in it, trying not to change up everything each week to something different. They're always rebrand when you need to, but make sure that if someone, especially if they've purchased into your community, that they know what they're getting, okay? And that you also make sure when you have these brand guidelines that you follow them as well. And a big, big tip of this is to make sure that your brand values are defined by you, very much define what your brand values are, and then make sure you convey them to others the way that you create your community, that essence, that theme, how you present your community, and everything that you have inside of it, and how you conduct yourself, and how you allow others to conduct themselves, right? When they access your community, when they're inside, whatever they do, make sure that everything is aligned because that is what will protect you, right? Again, it's going to help you know what your strategies are. Just like, we talk about this access, your brand values are going to help you figure out like this is how the community should set up. This is how it should flow. This is what goes on. This is what is allowable. This is what is not allowable based on brand values. Okay, so extremely important. First and foremost, I know this is your brand. I know this is your business, but in order for you to have a successful one and to stay out of legal hot water, you must protect your members. So, how I was talking about how that access to your community is really what you should be focusing on. So, the access is a piece of protecting your members because if you protect your members, then that strategy of the access of who has access, what they have access to, what is going on when your community is accessed, when there's any engagement, interaction, whatever, then that will help you with your protection strategy. So here we go. We're thinking about this as someone coming into your space. You want to make sure that you protect them, that yes, they have a safe space, and a safe space in every sense of that word, that they do not get hurt, damaged, injured while they're in your space, and that they feel free to be open because they know that they are safe and they won't get injured, even in the sense of being harassed or the like, or something that could happen, that someone's telling them to do something that may injure them actually in what we call the real world, right? Outside of the virtual community in the actual physical space. So protect your members if you want to legally protect yourself. Put that at top of mind, because if you're protecting your members, then you know what to do with access, because that access and those guidelines and the legal protocols that you put in place because of access will help you, again, keep yourself out of legal hot water and trouble. Okay, so think about data privacy. You're going to hear me say community guidelines, community guidelines, community guidelines a million times, and we even go over, not in this talk, but how to create community guidelines, again, why they're so important and what to do with and about them. So community guidelines, a code of conduct. You make this policy. It'll explain what the rights and responsibilities of members are, those who come, participants, those who come into your community, those who have access to, and you want to make sure that they are agreed to. And I'm going to say that not only are they agreed to, that those who are accessing your community and participating, they understand. So these guidelines must be clear, clear. So they're not just agreeing because they're like, I just want access, but they understand their rights as well as their responsibilities. And you must make this policy accessible. Okay. You must make it somewhere where they can find it, they know about it. When they sign up, maybe best would be even if you have it inside of your community somewhere as well, that they know right away, hey, let me check these guidelines. So make them accessible, make them understandable, and make sure that they are agreed to before there is access or any interaction or engagement in your community. Then you want to monitor the activity. So you've come up with these guidelines and you're telling everyone, these are your rights, these are your responsibilities. Well, you have to make sure that everyone adheres to these rights and responsibilities that are given. If you're not supposed to share information, you can't share information. You can't screenshot things. You can't record, right? You can only enter certain rooms. You cannot harass people, okay? You have to be careful in your language. You have to be understanding the basis of minimal things. And yes, these may be things that you think, okay, this is common sense. This is being kind to others 101. You have to spell it out because people's idea of common sense and being kind to each other are not always the same. So here we go again with your brand and community values. You must first convey them and then make sure that everyone is adhering to them. So sometimes you invite people into your community and you think that they are understanding and will adhere to and in alignment with those same values. That's not always the case. And you have to make sure that if you see that they are not aligning with or complying with your guidelines and your community values, that you take action. So, of course, you're going to immediately address these issues and any violations, okay? You see it, you're going to do something about it. You're not going to say, well, okay, I don't really want to kind of ruffle anyone's feathers. You have to, because if you allow the little things to happen, the bigger things are going to happen. And you yourself are in violation of your guidelines. Okay. So you as well must adhere to what is going on because you're asking other people to be mindful of others' rights, respect the rights of others. You have to respect the rights of others by making sure that those rights aren't violated and definitely not continuously violated. So, in order to do that, you must establish mechanisms, right, for any type of dispute resolution because your members, for some reason, someone's going to talk over another person, someone's going to say something that the other person does not perceive as being kind. This happens all day, every day, no matter what age you are, no matter what the topic is. There is going to be a disagreement. And if your membership is the type that invites opinions and disagreements and even feedback, you need to make sure that you have some type of mechanism in place if somebody feels like their rights have been disrespected or violated. What do you do? And anytime there is an incident and someone does come to you, please document that, okay? So you make sure you have incident reports of the like. Now, some things are minor and you can, handle and say, okay, let's work this out. But sometimes things are so egregious and just so much of a violation and just something you definitely do not want to have inside of your community. This is not a part of your values. This does not align with. This just completely goes against the vibe, the essence of everything in your community. Those people and their conduct have to go. Okay, they cannot stand. This is not even a sense of suspending. This is a sense of they have to go, they have to be blocked, and they cannot come back. So you have to make sure that you actually terminate these violators, okay? You cannot be complacent, number one, and you can't be lenient when there is something that's very egregious, and particularly if someone's being harassed or even people are stealing, not even, this is a situation, people are stealing others' ideas, their works, they're sharing personal information. They have to go. That conduct cannot be tolerated. There must be an end, a stop to it immediately. Okay. So this is important because there are situations where, yeah, it gets a little, um, I don't want to say that you fear, you don't want to ruffle feathers. It should never be a sense of there's a money issue. Well, I don't want to lose money, because you're going to lose money if you don't get this handled, because you're going to get sued. Okay. Someone is going to sue you because you did not take the action to end this. So definitely don't ever think of money as a issue. You get that person out of there, you're going to get more people in, because these people feel safe. Because if you keep that person in there just because you're worried about their membership fee, you're going to lose 10 other people. So that's not even the way that you're going to calculate how this works in your manner, to, or in your benefit, to keep that person and that type of conduct in. But just in general, you can't be afraid to say something, okay? And that's why you're going to have these guidelines already, that they understand, that they know what's going to happen to them if they have this, if they conduct themselves in that manner, right? And then you're going to have the mechanisms for, you conduct yourself in this manner, I'm going to eliminate your access and the like. Do not be afraid, because there is going to be more hurt, damage, liability on you if you don't handle it right away. Very important to know. All right. So how do you protect your members? Several ways. We're talking about access, right? Open communities are just a how do you say, like a petri dish? Just craziness that can come in. So you have to be careful. If everything's open and there's all access, you need to know who is coming in and out of your community. So it depends on what platforms you're on, but you may have to take it upon yourself to figure out who has access, what is going on. But at all times, you should know who is coming into your house, right? This is how we do, people put the cameras up or whatever to figure out who's in and off their property. This is the same. You must have some type of mechanism, something to know, something in place, who is coming in and out of your home, who is coming in and out of your community. One way you could do this, passwords. If you're able to lock a room and lock access where people can't get in at a certain time. I know Go Brunch has ways that we can lock individuals out, or persons, participant members, whomever, from coming into a room, and even coming into a room at certain times. Uh, while you're in the room, or even while you're not in the room. And then just which ways. So the gateway access, do they come in through a link? Can they only come in through their particular member password? Do they come in through your website? Like, how many locks do they have to unlock to get in? Do they just, push the door and they're in, or do they have to do the deadbolt and then the regular lock, and then there's another door behind that? And it depends, again, on what your community involves, what it has, how much protection that you need to protect your members. Again, if there's a lot more sensitive information or things that are personal, you're going to have that community that has that deadbolt, that regular lock, and then another door behind that that you have to unlock too. And then you're probably taking names and looking at IDs, kind of thing. You don't have to get that deep into it, but yes, depending on how much you need to protect your members, okay? And what I would say is, you limit open access And if there is open access, that there is someone, you or someone from your team that is there in the vicinity for that open access period of time. Okay. So I like to give events that are open to the public, right? You have maybe webinars, presentations, and you're advertising. Maybe you put ads out so you don't know who's coming in, right? These aren't just your members, but you're inviting them into your space. These are people you're inviting into your home. I want you to think of it like that. We are talking about that, think of this community as your physical home. All right. You generally want to be there if there's a party going on or people are in your home. So, what you want to do is if there's open access for people and you don't know about it, you don't know who they are, excuse me, that you are there to monitor actions and what's going on, or someone from your team. So, there should always be a moderator of some type, particularly when there is open access. This may not, again, it depends on how much protection you need to afford to your members based on your community. If it's a members only space, again, we're talking about co-working. So if there's the virtual co-working, then if it's open to everyone, we definitely need a moderator there. We just can't keep the rooms open. But if you're saying that there's a 24/7 virtual co-working for maybe your members, again, you still want to make sure that you know who's coming in and out of that room, and you have ways that if someone needs to exit that room or the like, just yeah, sometimes people need to get away from other people that they're able to do that, maybe give them another space and another way that they can have a place where they are not necessarily, and the word would be bothered. Okay. So if it's open access and it's at times when there's no one available from your team to moderate it, you want to be mindful and careful and make sure that you have the right protocols in place. A lot of times there are chats available. For some reasons, I keep the chats open if I have a message, okay? And then, but we tend to put things in the chat. Maybe somebody puts their website in or someone says something. First, in your guidelines, you tell people do not put your social security number in there. Don't put your address in there, okay? Make sure that sensitive or personal information isn't placed in that chat. And when it is, or even just general information, clear the chats. Clear the chat. So when you leave the room and everyone who was involved or put the information in, that clears with them. Hopefully, like Go Brunch allows us to have personalized chats. So if you can chat with a specific individual, maybe you're giving them information that doesn't need to be in the full community anyway. So again, we're mindful of what information we're putting in or we're allowing our members, our participants to put in, but encourage them if it's personal information and they're really speaking to someone else, watch what personal information you put in, but DM direct message, the other person or so. But to help yourself, protect yourself, your brand, your company, clear the chats where there is specific information in there. So you can say at the end, hey, everybody, go through the chat, make sure you see what's going on. All right, again, monitor, 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 monitor activity. That is your job, your responsibility. That is you complying with your guidelines. Again, always immediately address issues and violations. This is not a duplicate. This is here again to reiterate, to reinforce what I have to say about this. Again, establish those mechanisms for any dispute resolutions and terminate violators. Okay. Yes, the egregious ones, but even suspend those even for minor infractions, as someone, as we like to say in the legal community. But make sure that you can give someone a suspension for a week or a suspension of access to something, and then say, hey, this is part of the guidelines. You knew this was going to happen. Have a talk with them, tell them why, explain to people if it's not super, super, super egregious. Because if you don't tell people why you feel like they did something wrong, I'm hoping that the person who did something did not really understand, fully recognize, or realize what they did. Let them know what they did, because again, we're putting an incident report anyway. So you're speaking to them, you're saying that you spoke to them. Let them know what they did and why it doesn't align with the community values, why it's a violation of the guidelines and their access and the terms and conditions. And then still suspend them. Yes. There are warnings that you could give, there's suspension, and then there's termination. Okay. All right. So speaking of terms of use and service, right? So things, if they're not doing it, it's a violation, but you have to let them know we have these guidelines, but you have to also create terms of use and service. And these terms of use and services are usually your policies that go with your website. And particularly if your community is attached to your, and I mean attached, like it's a link on your website or so, you'll have it in the footer. But this isn't always the case. But what you do is when someone signs up for your community, they get access to it. You let them know that this community, what goes on here is still covered, I would say, by your terms of use of service. So that still applies. That terms of use of service is any part of your online virtual world. Okay. So not just this community, but whatever you have, that those terms of use and services, that agreement also applies to your community. Again, you want to make everything that you have that someone's agreeing to and you need them to follow and comply with easily accessible. So, not just on your website, put it in your hubs again. Link, 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 link. It's everything. Terms of use. Please see my terms of use. You don't have to have a full, your full terms of use and services within your hubs, within your community on a page, but you have to have a link somewhere that they at least encounter it at some point when they're accessing things or they know about it. You can stick it, depending on what type of community you have, in the footer. You can talk about it too. Just get it somewhere inside the community that they know about it. And every time something comes up or you're saying something, you're like, please make sure you're complying with, you refer to the terms of use and service. And make sure it's consistent in all places. You're not going to say that this is allowable here, but it's not allowable there, or this happens, just whatever terms you have, your guidelines, your terms of use and your service. When I'm talking about consistent and consistency, I mean that those terms are consistent. You don't have to have the same color scheme of like, this is what goes on here and there. I'm talking about the actual terms that are being agreed to, the things that you want them to comply with, that they must be consistent across the board. There are different terms that are going to apply to a community versus your website, but still, those terms are in alignment with each other. And generally on your website, you can even add in, and I do suggest that people add in some of the terms or the conditions that apply to their particular communities as well. And on my website, I have my terms of use and service, my privacy policy, my disclaimers, and my code of conduct, which I consider my community guidelines as well. So it's just cover yourself, okay? And protect your members. And these terms of use and services, they are protecting your rights, right? They're saying, hey, you come into my home, this is what you must do to have access to my home, to be able to come back, to be able to stay in, stay inside, to be able to interact, to be able to engage with me or anyone else inside. So, right, these are the rights that you have that they must comply with, but also let them know, what rights they have and what permissions they have again to utilize whatever's inside of the home and what permissions that they may be giving you. So if they're bringing something to your home, then let them know that if it's something they came with and they need to leave back with, this means, like if they come in with their own intellectual property or like that it stays there unless there's some agreement that they say, hey, I brought this is for you, now it's yours. In the sense of, how people bring, if someone brings a cake, if they're only supposed to bring it, you take a little piece, you consume it then, but they're taking the rest of the cake home with them, then that's their cake. But if they're like, I brought this cake, this is your cake, you can do whatever you want with it, then that's the sense of you could do whatever you want with it. But you want to think of if somebody's bringing something in, yes, they may be giving you a slice, a little bit of use of whatever it is, but then they're taking it back with them because it really belongs to them. They're just sharing with you for a little bit. Make sure that they know their rights and not only the permissions you're affording them with your rights, but that they know what permissions that they are given, that they get to maintain their rights so that they're not giving you, unless this is the agreement, but generally it's not always that way, generally, so that they maintain whatever rights. All right, please, 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 please. There's a whole guide on this too about how you handle their money, what they pay into you. So how you collect it. What do you do if they want a refund? If they're not satisfied? All right. Are you collecting it through credit card, PayPal, like a Stripe sense of Stripe? Sometimes some platforms have their own payment gateways, or maybe they could do PayPal. Are you collecting it in full? Are you collecting it up front? So you collect it on June 1st and they have access until July 30th, or do they get access from June 1st to 30th and they don't have to pay until July 1st? Like, you let them know what happens when you're going to get money, how you're going to collect it, and what happens if they want their money back. Do you have a refund policy? How and when does that go into place? How is that conducted? If I ask for a refund, do I get it right away? Do I get a refund at all? If I want to cancel my account, can I cancel it right in my account without having to speak to you? Is there a button I just push and cancel and I'm done? Or do I have to wait for email? Do I have to interact with you? Do I have to go through hoops? All of those things I just said, besides being able to cancel it in your account without talking to anyone, brings about a lot of liability. So if you can, and again, there's a whole nother guide on cancellation, refund policies, payment terms, and all of that. But be mindful of how you are constantly collecting someone's money and how you allow them to say, I may have given you money today, but I don't want to give you money tomorrow. Okay. So be very mindful of that. And inside of your terms of use and service, what happens if someone isn't complying with your terms? What again, if they're sharing your information, right? If they're not paying you on time when they're supposed to pay monthly or whenever, if there's any reoccurring, if they are harassing someone, okay? So what happens when something goes wrong? Make sure that those terms are in there and review. Laws change. So if there's something in there that you may have, even lately, it's like how you have to let people know if they have a reoccurring debit from you, that it is actually happening, when it's going to happen, why it's going to happen, things like that. Your disclaimers, any even testimonies that you have. The laws are changing, that it should be something where they opt into rather than opt out of. And really quick, that means that you shouldn't have certain things just be automatic or the checkbox checked already. The checkbox should be clear so that they click on it and check yes, that they accept. You shouldn't have the checkbox already checked that they accept. You give them that choice. So that should be unchecked. All right. Same thing. These are with the laws coming up. You give them the choice that they actually have to agree to it, that it's not already agreed to for them. Okay. So review often because laws change, not only just the overall law, but industry law change and just business practices too. But definitely you want to look at them every year or so. I would say give it a quarterly at the least, just to see what new changes may have occurred or what's going on in your business. Maybe you don't want to give refunds anymore. Maybe you had an open money back guarantee. No matter what, you can get a refund. You don't even have to say anything. I'm just going to automatically give you money back. Nothing wrong with that. But maybe at another time you decide, okay, maybe we need to talk this out before you get money. All right. It doesn't have to be the super, super next step, but you have to think about what's going on in your business, what works for you. So maybe you change it. Do let people know when you're changing it. You do not have to like super announce it everywhere if you let them know that it's been changed. Maybe the date. It just depends on what you tell them, how they will get notified. All right. It is nice to email people and let them know if you are changing your policies. All right. Very, 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 very important policy besides your terms and conditions. It's your privacy policy, right? Oh my goodness, we were talking about protecting the members, but if there is any way you need to protect your business and make sure you are staying out of legal hot water, it is making sure that your privacy policy is robust and sound, and it is really protecting your members or anyone that you are collecting any information from. And of course, it needs to be GDPR and CPRA compliant. CPRA is the European Union's GDPR, but I know we want to say, oh, I just have members or visitors or participants in the US. You're an online business, so that means you have visitors, participants all over the world, and we're all about conquering the entire universe. Okay, so yes, make it a given that your business is global, worldwide. So that GDPR is going to apply to you. Okay, and then CPRA is the California Privacy Rights Act, and California, we all know how much I love that state. I'm licensed in that state, right? When I say they have the most restrictive laws, so generally, if there is a law in the US that you need to comply with, you're going to look to California, because talking about protecting your members, in the sense of they really do try to protect their residents, their citizens of their state, they put a lot more restrictions in place than other states do. Many other states are a lot more lenient in what they allow, businesses to do, but they very much protect their consumers in California. So I always say, look to them and see what they say first. Again, you go with whatever your state territory says, but also remember that you are a global company here. This is a universal, as in the entire universe, all the planets, everything, stars and all, that you comply with the most restrictive law and think that of people, individuals, participants, members being from all over. All right. So, yes, again, and actually, I don't know if I stress this enough. The laws are based on the member's location, not your location. Okay. I know you think that you can control member location, and you can to a certain extent. It just depends on your business model. But if you're online and you're keeping it open to people who are in other states and places, then that control is gone out of the way. So, say you're in Virginia or so. And in this community, maybe you have a knitting community, but you all are online, but you're really local, 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 and you really don't open it up to anyone from anywhere else, then there's a little control you can put into that. Maybe the compliance laws of Virginia does have a privacy law, so you do have to be mindful of that too. So check into Virginia's new privacy law and regulations, but maybe you can just tailor them to that. I would just be mindful of, for sure, making sure they comply with the Virginia law, but also comply with the global and US and possibly California. All right. Again, you have to monitor the activity that's going on and how information is being collected. And this is on your part or any third party vendors, apps, anything that you integrate with your site communities. You want to make sure that they are on the up and up and that they have um what should I say? Rules and regulations that protect your people. Let's see. I skipped over for some reason cybersecurity. So one of the things too is to make sure that the information that you're collecting from people, it stays with you, okay? And you are using it for the particular reason that you are telling people you're collecting it from. So I'm going to go back a little bit. You you're collecting information. You tell people what information you're collecting from them, and then you let them know exactly what you're doing with that information and who else you've given access to, and then you give them the option of revoking that access. So sometimes people, if they leave, they say, I don't want you to give my information to this person. I don't want you to keep my information. I want you to erase it. You do just that. Now, if you having access to their information is important and required for that person to interact with your site or your business, you let them know. You still terminate that access, make sure that you no longer collect or keep that information, but you tell them that, okay, well, you're not allowing me to have this information. It's needed to interact, to engage, to consume my products and services. So I'm going to take it out of my system, but that also means that you are not able to access my system, okay? And possibly they're fine with that, but just tell them, yes, you have the right to where your information is going. However, in order to interact with my business, I need that information. So you don't want your information here? Perfectly fine, but you cannot participate or engage with or consume my products and services. And that is just how it is. Okay? That's fine. They want their information taken down, you take it down. You can tell them that takes away from whatever, but you have means and mechanisms for taking that down and letting them know that it's been taken down. And GDPR, CPRA, Virginia, Ohio, all the different states that territories that have specific laws tell you what the protocol is for collecting, storing, and then removing that information. All right. Be mindful of community access to information. Okay. Again, this is here when someone may put something in the chats. Okay. When they're talking just in general, tell everybody, protect your privacy. Don't say anything that you don't want someone else saying. You would tell people, do not say anything that happens or share anything that happens within our communities. But you also have to tell the person that it applies to not to actually share their private information as well. So you don't share the private information of others. And there are times when you're going to have to tell people, do not share your private information. Again, if it's someone's social security number, their address, things like that, something's very personal to them, you tell them, do not share that openly, because as much as you are putting all of these protocols in place and telling people they should not share it, things happen. Okay. So you've done your part, but you want to make sure that they know that by them putting that information out there, they've now sort of diminished the protection you can give them. Okay. All right. Again, so you monitor any activity. And if you hear someone saying something, you're like, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. No confidential personal information. And you immediately address these issues and violations. Again, this is not just a repeat of what's on the bottom. These are things that I want to reinforce to make sure that you are doing. And as like the terms and conditions, you review your privacy policy often. The privacy regulations, particularly for states, are updating monthly. Okay, so definitely used to be yearly, but monthly, and things change. Okay, California CPRA earlier this year, something wasn't supposed to go into effect. It had already gone into effect fully in 2023, but there was a little pushback, I think from the Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. In California, so that there was a pause, a hold on full implementation of the CPRA. But once that was settled, even though the date was extended into March, I think it was settled sometime in February or something, and we're right into enactment in February. So you have to be mindful again of, the laws are changing. So you always give yourself time to find out about what's going on in your industry and the laws. And of course, speak with your legal advisors, your attorneys about what's going on in your industry and particularly for your business. All right. Privacy again. I talked about this extensively, but I want you to see it. Data privacy. Be very mindful. You see over there, get consent. Above all, everything, you need consent, permission to gather, collect their information, to store it the way that you store it. What do you do when it needs to be removed? Get consent, get permission. All right, again, going with those regulations. What data are you collecting? How and where are you collecting this data? Okay, is it just an open form that you're taking in information? Is it encrypted? What is going on? How is it being collected? Where is it being collected from? How are you safeguarding it, basically? So, where are you storing this data once you are collecting it? How and to whom are you sharing that data with, right? Are you sharing it with third parties? Because maybe this third party app that's integrated with your site or your platform needs that information. How are you sharing? How much of that information are you sharing? Are you sharing everything that you have with this third party, or are you just sharing exactly the piece of information they need to make everything function? And that's so important, what you are sharing and how you are sharing when we're talking about protecting your members, protecting your rights, and keeping you out of legal hot water. And you want to make sure that you're not exposing the data. There's no leak of the information anywhere. Again, be mindful of like where you're storing everything you have. Sometimes you put everything in your business in the cloud, which would include, customer, client, community member data. So you have to be careful about where you're placing the data. Is it accessed by someone else, right? Who isn't a part of your team that you don't even know can access it. So be careful. So you want to assess all channels and funnels of where this information is being collected, stored, kept. All right. Disclaimer. So, disclaimers is another bit of policy that you have to think about with communities. And again, these are things that you have on your website as well, but think about them in the terms of your community. All right. So, if you're giving out information and you just happen to be a lawyer, a doctor, or accountant, is it legal, medical, or financial information? Are you actually authorized to give that type of information? Yes, I am an IP, intellectual property attorney. I can't give you any tax legal advice. Heaven forbid, do not take any type of real estate legal advice from me or anything like that. But also state whether you're giving out that type of advice. So when I am talking to you, when I'm having these talks, these guides created, any type of resources that I give you, I let you know this isn't legal advice. Okay, this is legal information that applies to general population, someone who is maybe in your industry that has the same type of business, is not particularly legal advice coming from an attorney speaking directly to you about exactly what you should be doing right now. There is a big difference between that. This is legal information. And you need to say that. Like if you're a doctor, particularly if you're a doctor, you definitely, if you're an attorney, but you have to be careful because then you're saying, yes, I'm a doctor, so this is medically what you should do, or something like that. Are you giving medical advice? Are you giving medical information? Because you're thinking about whatever you're saying, they see you as this professional, this expert, so that they may act on what you say, but you have to tell people this is general advice. It is your responsibility to do your due diligence to see how, one, this works within your needs, and to actually seek out an attorney, a doctor, an accountant for your particular needs. Okay. You let them know just in the beginning, there was that legal disclaimer that I gave you. This may have some information about the legal matters or considerations that happen in your type of business if you have a virtual community and the like. But I am not your attorney. I am not giving you specific advice. I am giving you, informational and educational tips, but I am not particularly advising you on exactly what to do. I'm sharing tips, okay? I am not your attorney. I said and stated that if you do need an attorney, then you are to find an attorney in your jurisdiction, and preferably one that knows about your business, someone that can help you. Okay. You do the same if you are a doctor. Um, a lot of times I'll state that I am an attorney because I am. This is what I do. But I will not go in like, okay, I'm an attorney, and because I'm an attorney, such and such and such. Just like if someone's a doctor, they're like, I'm a doctor, this and that, and doctor, 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 because I'm a doctor. You want to say, I am, I'm Tanya. Yes, I'm a lawyer. And I know these things because this is my job, but I'm not doing this as your particular lawyer. Okay. This is information that I know that I'm sharing with you. Everything isn't because I'm a lawyer, you're supposed to follow this. This is information that I have that I am sharing. Okay. It does help that it comes from a particular professional expert, but it is not given to you as direct advice. Okay. So, very important. So, if you are of the type that is dealing with someone's livelihood and definitely the life and death and their money. Okay. So, we're talking about the legal, the medical. So if you're an attorney, you're a physician, particularly too, when we're talking about physical and mental health, so important that you put that disclaimer in there. And then financially, if you are a financial expert, an attorney, an accountant, make sure because this is someone's livelihood. All right. This could destroy their livelihood, right? And some of this could destroy their lives, particularly for medical things. All right. Moving on. Liability. So you do have to disclaim, hey, I told the members, don't do this. Do not post your personal information. So you protect yourselves from what other people are doing, other actions. Okay, you say, I have my guidelines. This is what I'm saying you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. These are the ways that you interact with others. This is what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to post, what happens if you do, and the like. You protect yourself. So you have these guidelines and you say within it, I'm not responsible for the information that you post. If you post your social security, your bank account numbers, and all of that, please note, I specifically asked you not to do that, but you did it anyway. So you are liable for how that information is utilized or distributed. And then you also speak about the actions of other members. You say you have these guidelines that you're monitoring, that you are enforcing, and you are going to do that. But you cannot stop someone right in that moment, particularly if you're not there. But if someone's going to harass someone, then and someone does something, you've done everything you can on your end. People are going to do what people are going to do. This is just the nature of people in this world, right? So you make sure to cover yourself by saying, all right, this is what I'm going to do when this happens. I'm going to try to make sure this doesn't happen. I'm going to be proactive, but if it does happen, I am not responsible fully for someone else's action. And then if they're third party vendors or software, if something happens out of that, you let them know that is their issue. If there's a privacy issue with that, I've done my due diligence by making sure that I have contracted with or I'm integrated with third party things that are on the up and up, but things happen and things change and something may happen. I did do my part, but I'm not fully responsible because that is their business. It's just something that we work with. It's just as long as you do your part. So you have to make sure that you do your part in double checking and vetting these vendors and the software, but you can't be responsible for everything that happens. All right. Another thing, sometimes your content is outdated. Okay. Things change. We're talking about the laws change. I be telling you something today and then the law changes tomorrow. You're like, oh goodness, I just put out all of this stuff. Say that, your content is as accurate at that time that you posted it, possibly. And there are mistakes. We make typos. We all make mistakes. You do mean to correct them, when you are notified and alerted to them. But not everything is always, there are mistakes. Okay. So we do our best to make sure that things are in, that it's accurate, it's up to date. So you say this may not be up to date, may not be accurate. Be mindful and do your due diligence. This is what you're telling the member to do before utilizing this information. Okay. Another thing is if you use a depends on how you feel about that. But if you use AI and depending on how you use AI, that's fine. Okay. So just let them know I used AI for, maybe artwork or so. But if it's, fully AI or something and it's not coming from you, you definitely want to let them know how you utilize it. You'll see, I think even in my terms, the way that I word it is that I use AI for ideas, but the information that you are receiving comes from me. Like I didn't just copy it off of whatever came out of ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever the AI software in the moment is, that I didn't put in something and say, hey, I need to know this, and then pasted it back to you, that this maybe came from, I need a content idea or the like, and then the information that you were receiving is all based on my knowledge and expertise or what I know. So if you're using AI and you're just grabbing and pasting, for sure you need to put that down. And things are changing. Again, there are no specific full regulations on AI at this moment. We're just hoping everyone is doing their best to be um, mindful and respectful of everyone's rights. We know that's not always the case. So, caveat, disclaim it, and say, okay, I got this information from AI. It may or may not be accurate. You have to say that. I don't know if it's accurate or not. I'm hoping it's accurate or whatever. Hopefully, you did your due diligence in looking, but do write in that disclaimer. Guarantees and outcome. Whoosh. I am going to tell you what I do. I never guarantee anything or any outcome, and you have to be very, 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 very careful when you do that, especially with the Federal Trade Commission, because we're trying to protect the consumers. Even if someone does make $1 million off of your framework or the like, if that's not typical for everyone, if not everyone that comes into your program makes $1 million, maybe some people make 100, some people make nothing, then you saying that they're going to make $1 million isn't quite accurate, right? So you want to be mindful in what you're saying, and that if you guarantee results, are they actually going to get results? Can you actually guarantee results? Because if you cannot guarantee results, then you should not be saying that you guarantee results or any type of outcome. Again, safety, there are disclaimers about things that people need to be mindful of when we're talking about even fitness classes. So maybe you're doing virtual fitness classes and the like, you want to say, hey, you are doing this in your home. I'm trying to tell you, these are the actions and the things that I would like you to do. But if there is a couch or chair near you, I do ask that you clear the space so that you'll have room to move and that you will not bump into anything and injure yourself. But you make sure you tell them you're not responsible for them tripping over their rug, doing a burpee in their living room, or stepping on a Lego toy piece. Okay. So there are things, and then just be mindful also to say you're not responsible, more or less, if they're not staying hydrated or the things. But you talk about safety in that situation, and you talked about safety, within your community, just what you are stating that you are responsible for. So another thing, what do we talk about at the end? You immediately address any issues and violations. So you monitor anything that you are not necessarily responsible for, but you're noticing is happening. So what do? You get in there and you make sure that this discontinues. It doesn't continue. That is your responsibility. Okay. And again, you review whatever disclaimers you have or what you're saying, what is going on, your policies, and you do that at least every year. All right, the good stuff. Intellectual property. All right, so let's talk about intellectual property, how to maintain your rights and to make sure that you're not infringing on the rights of your members, participants, visitors, as well to your community. So let's first figure out and define what intellectual property is. Generally, you hear the patent, copyright, and trademark, but there is a fourth one, which is trade secrets, and we'll talk about that too. So patents, when you think about patents, you're thinking about inventions. There's a method, there's a system. An example is software. Copyrights, that covers authored creative works and originally offered creative Oh, well, original content created and placed in a tangible form. Okay, so it has to be original, and these are creative works. We're talking about even your ebooks, um, graphics, photos, music, and the like, okay? Now, trademarks, what trademarks are, they are source identifiers, all right? That's your name, that's your tagline, your slogan a little bit more, okay? But that's what we're talking about more or less. So that's what distinguishes them. And trade secrets, that's your proprietary confidential information that you do not want to get out. That is how you do things so amazingly that if it got out, it would destroy your business, okay? It would destroy you making revenue off of it. So those are your trade secrets. What you want to do when you are claiming these rights is you want to make sure that you give notice of the rights, right? So if there is information and you're saying this is covered by copyright, do not copy my workbooks, my plans, my information, my videos, all the like. With that C symbol, you put them on notice that this is protected by copyright. Trademarks. Now, trademarks have two symbols that you can use. If your mark has been registered, particularly by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, you're able to use that R symbol once you get that registration number. However, if your mark has not been afforded a registration by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, but you still have trademark rights, common law trademark rights into something. You're claiming the name, right? The slogan and the like. You're claiming yourself to be a source identifier for your goods and services, your products and services. You're going to place that TM on the end to let people know. You're like, this is distinguishing my brand from yours. This is what I use as a source indicator identifier for my products and services. Then you secure your rights. So part of securing your rights is registering them for sure, as well as making sure you maintain them. And you monitor that no one is violating, infringing, misusing, abusing them. That is part of securing your rights. There's actually a video in our resource library on securing your rights. So, and I talk about it all the times. Part of securing your rights is not just registration, but making sure that you are monitoring those rights and enforcing them when you see any violation of those rights that you actually own. And of course, you want to register those rights. So, in doing all of this, you want to make sure that whenever you are creating something or you have something that you document that. And if you're distributing anything, and I'll go back to the document creation, also any versions, okay? Because you may add things or take things, remove things from them, but the whatever version, so you document what you have, when you created it, of course, and what version and the like that's in it, any changes that have been made. And then if you're distributing them in as far as sharing with others in any manner, commercially, excuse me, or non-commercially, or and that can mean selling it or, in your business. However, you are sharing it, then you want to make sure that you document how you're sharing it, who you're sharing it to, what rights you're giving them, and what dates that you allowed that information to be shared. All right, so let's really talk some more about protecting your rights. Always, always, always monitor and address any misuse or infringement. I want you to educate your members on proper use of your brand. Okay. How did they use your name? Make sure they're not using it in a manner that is going to damage your brand name or dilute it, and just to the point where no one understands what your brand is, or that it's given a bad reputation or so when it shouldn't have it, right? So you make sure that they properly use your brand name. So I'm going to use Zumba as an example. If anyone knows, that's a dance fitness. It's a type of dance fitness class. You don't say that I am Zumba-ing or something like that, or actually that I'm going to Zumba, because what is Zumba? Zumba is the source of what you're going to. You're going to a dance class. So you're going to a Zumba dance fitness class, if that makes any sense. So you don't want to say I'm going to Zumba because you've turned that trademark, that brand into a verb, not a source indicator or to let you know what type of class it is. Okay. So that's different than saying I'm going to a dance class, because now you know with Zumba, it's a Latin inspired type of dance fitness. So if someone goes to a Zumba class, they know that I'm going to a Latin inspired base fitness class. Okay. So that's why it's important. So you let them know, don't say I'm going to do something, making it into a verb or changing it up. If it's Zumba and you're like, Roomba or something, which Roomba is a type of dance, but um, just make sure that everyone is with proper use, excuse me, and that includes your members and for sure your team members and yourself. And then you also specify whatever permissions and licenses you are giving someone. Even if you are giving them full access to everything, they can download this. Say, well, this is for your personal use, right? You get one non-exclusive license. Non-exclusive mean that other people are using it, but this is still personal to you. You're not to sell, distribute, perform anything. All right. Copy that information that you're giving them, whether it's video, audio, um, written form, okay? You let them know what permissions. Maybe you are giving them all permissions to do that. Whatever permissions they have, whatever license you're giving them to use, you must state that. And then again, you're going to monitor and make sure that they're doing what you requested, that they're staying within those boundaries, those permissions. All right. Again, use your own marks correctly and consistently. Don't use them as verbs. Don't make it generic. Don't use it in a sentence. Use it as you would use your name. So I'm not going to say, I'm going to Tanya something, right? This comes from Tanya. Yes. So you think of it like your name. It's your brand name. You don't put it as a verb or into a sentence. You are consistent. So you want to make sure that if you have stylized versions or things like that, if your mark is pink, giraffe, and elephants, then at some point it's not saying pink elephants and giraffe. All right, because then that's not the same as pink giraffes and elephants versus pink elephants and giraffes. Same things. They might be pink elephants and pink giraffes, but because that is slightly different, that is not your mark. So be consistent. And we go over that a lot more in our trademark guides. All right. Have non-disclosure agreements. We're talking about confidential information. Keep that information confidential. Let people know what is confidential and then how long they must keep it confidential. You make sure that they know that this is not to be shared, and this is how long it should not be shared, and this is what happens if it is shared. Okay, so what are the penalties for being shared? Again, notice and your claims of your rights within your policies and on and within your content. This is protected by copyright law. These trademarks are the trademarks. These words, these names are the trademarks of such and such. This has a patent either pending or it's patented and things like that. All right. Again, keep your valuables confidential. Okay. What information that you do not want to get out there, you do not give open access to. You keep it close to your heart, as they say, but you keep it very much within confines and boundaries of those who should know and need to know, right? Need to know basis kind of thing. But again, we're going back with the non-disclosure agreement. So make sure that whatever you have, you maintain those rights. And the way to maintain those rights is to protect them and make sure they're just not out there for anyone to use without permission. And if they do have permission, how they should be using it. All right. And while you are claiming your rights and telling other people how to use your intellectual property, make sure that you, within what you are doing, do not infringe upon anyone else's rights, and particularly your members. Talked about this a little earlier. If they are giving you, a lot of times we have that UGC, that's UGC, which is user generated content. And a lot of times we're requesting that. That could include someone, um, not just in contests. A lot of times people think about that. You're like, oh, when submit this, what's a name, or I guess, or I'm thinking more of a graphic or something like that that they would submit or whatever for a contest you're asking them to do. But this goes beyond that. Sometimes you're even asking them to, tell you a little bit about their business or give a report, give a pitch deck. Sometimes, when we're asking for feedback, we do our collaboration things. What is your pitch? So they're submitting information. That is their information, right? And you are to respect their rights and the like. So whatever you're asking them for, even if you are asking people to upload, photos of themselves, right? That's user generated content that they are uploading the photos for their avatar. Those photos belong to them, not you. So whatever you're asking them to upload, right, or enter into the community to share, you make sure that you don't infringe upon their rights. You let them know what you're doing with any of the information, the creative works, the content that they are uploading. All right. Very important. And yes, there's a guide on that too. But right now we're talking about just legal considerations in general in your virtual communities. Trademarks, this is my favorite. I don't know now. No, trademarks are my favorite just because it's what I've been doing forever. I do love the nuances with copyright, especially as a digital creator. But trademarks, very important that your trademarks are distinct and that you register your names and your marks, and that they're registrable. All right. Remember, we're talking about getting that strong brand identity, just as you would name a brick and mortar, you're naming your communities, right? It's very important that you get a distinct one that will distinguish you from others in the market and your competitors, right? And that these names are names that you can actually claim rights to. If it's something generic, if you're saying Food Mart and you're a Food Mart, more or less, then that's generic. You can't claim rights to it. So do try and get a name that is also registerable, and you can look through our resource library for trademarks and how to choose an amazing and fantabulous one, as I like to say. All right. So when you are choosing a trademark for your community, you need to do a very, very, very thorough search. You definitely need to check for that trademark and similar names that would be in the US and Patent and Trademark Office database. But do remember that a lot of companies, people, individuals, they don't register their trademarks for numerous reasons, but know that they don't. So you have to be thorough and diligent in your search as well. You are going to look through the search engines and see if there is something similar or the same to your mark or the brand that you want to have. And you're going to look at different variations and versions of that. Okay. And again, I do want you to check the trademark information that we have because it goes into greater detail on how to choose and look for similar or the same marks and why that's important. I do want you to know that owning a domain or a Go Brunch handle or social media handle does not mean that you have trademark rights, okay? Um, I don't know if you've heard about this, but this happens so often. So you most likely encountered someone, if it even if it hasn't happened to you or the like, that has had to rebrand. And they're like, well, I have the domain name. Well, also, there are cyber domain squatters, excuse me. And people choose a name, but that name may actually be someone else's trademark. So you have to be very careful. And just because you have a domain name doesn't mean, particularly if you're not using it as a source identifier and you're not using it with your products and services in that manner, then it's not showing any indication that it's a trademark, but it doesn't give you any rights. You just have bought a domain name. So has nothing to do with your trademark rights or anything like that. Even if your handle is, you have to use it as a trademark. And if you have a domain name that is someone else's trademark, yes, it is true that sometimes you just have to give it to them because you are infringing on their rights. So you want to look up, even if you can get a domain name, you're like, yes. But if you see that someone didn't quite get that domain name, but they do have that trademark, then you're going to have to give that up because you're violating. So say, let's use Nike. So if you put in Nike t-shirts and Nike doesn't have the domain name Nike t-shirts because I mean, companies trademark registration is expensive and it's a given you're using my trademark within your domain. So you are not allowed to do that. So if you get Nike t-shirts, you see that's available and you're like, I'm going to use that. You can't use that because that includes someone's trademark. So you would have to give that to you can't sell it to them because what is that? If you sell it, you try and sell someone back their rights. How does that sound? Yes, that does not sound that that is going to fly, right? No. So you would actually be required to give maybe that domain name to Nike, right? For free. No money. You can't sell them. That's like holding a ransom. That was the word I was looking for. Okay. So, all right. Do be mindful of that because that's a big one. People are like, I have the domain name. That domain name doesn't mean much. All right. When you do have a trademark, again, treat it as a trademark and make sure that what you have is not already owned outside of Go Brunch. Okay, copyrights. That's another one. Okay, very important because a lot of us, I know I am even this video. So this video, the way that I put things together, this slide deck that's within this video and the like, copyright, right? It's protected by copyright law. It is my creative way of putting this information together. It is the way that I am presenting it to you. I'm putting it in, a tangible form. I'm also moving that mic. But this goes beyond just any workbook, guide, or something, a resource that is attached to it, the other content. It's things like even your videos, your audio feeds, and the like too. So with your copyright, you have to think about this. It's your original content, your workshops, like I just said, your workbooks, the community design in a manner of, if you're not using AI, because you cannot get copyright for AI created designs or the like, but just your design overall. And then, like, especially if you're a graphic designer and you designed it, you're an artist, excuse me, and you designed it, yeah, because that is your original content, your original creative work, you own the copyright to it. And then your framework, yes, it's the manner and the way that you do get people results that you are not guaranteeing. Remember, I said that. But that is your original content, your original creative work, okay? So you want to be mindful of that. You register significant original content. If you have a workshop, excuse me, workbook and the like, the design of your community that you've drawn, put together, then yes, if it's a significant part of your business, if it's very important to you, again, it just depends on you. Figure out what assets you have and then how valuable they are to you, the growth, the success of your community, your business, whatever. Then, yes, I do say that, you should look into registering that. And whatever you do, you restrict access and permissions and sharing so that it's not all over the place and share with just anyone. You let people know what rights they have. Again, we're talking about, are you able to copy, distribute, share, show, whatever, perform, they're the copyrights within the copyright law, right? So you let them know what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. Okay, can they commercially share this or can they non-commercially share this? Okay, so very important. All right, and again, you monitor and enforce it. So if you see your information get out there, and it's not supposed to be, then you are going to say, hey, I heard that you shared X, Y, and Z with someone, or you're selling my things. I'm going to ask that you stop. You take all of the actions you need to do to enforce your rights. All right. Resources that you do need to think of for protection. Again, you have that clear terms of use of the information, the resources that you are sharing with them. So you tell them this is how you use it. Okay, make sure it's clear that they know that this is how they use it. All right. So be very clear in what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. What distribution channels then are you providing this? Is it somewhere where they can download it a million times, or they can download it from anywhere so that maybe someone else can get access to it as well and download it? So you have to think about, where are you placing this for people to access, and then is it in a place that is secure or that it's restricted? Okay, and you implement access controls. Maybe they can only download it once, maybe they can only download it from a certain place. Okay, make sure that you're putting something in place to restrict it in the manner you need it to be. You monitor and you prevent unauthorized sharing or distribution. And if it's not for commercial use, you must specify not commercial use. And commercial use doesn't always mean that they make money, but that it's not in a way that benefits them commercial commercially, that they could make money off of it. Or even sometimes people think of likes, because maybe you can monetize your YouTube, so you're not necessarily making money from putting it up there, from somebody grabbing that resource, but the fact that people know that that resource is there and they're constantly coming to your channel. And the more people you get to your channel, the more you can monetize it. You see how that goes, and then it becomes commercial use. So it doesn't mean that it's immediately sold to someone and that money is exchanged right away. It's just that it can benefit you in your business commercially. All right. And then again, you always address any content misuse, any plagiarism, any stealing. Okay, enforce those terms and policies and enact those penalties. Again, let's see. Oops, that looks like I didn't move. Okay, other issues and situations that can affect your brand negatively. All right, so on to a new section. Children. Oh my goodness. So very important. Some of you all may have communities that allow children to participate or interact with, engage within your community, or consume things. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, children are a liability. And if you do allow children in any manner to interact, engage, consume anything, someone needs to be there to monitor what goes on when the children are there, to make sure that those children are safe. Safety is paramount, okay? So watch who is coming in and out, who has access, And then check what the kids are doing while they're in there. Make sure that they're safe and they're not doing anything that harms them. And it depends on what kind of activity, even if you have an activity, if it's a movement activity, you want to make sure that they're not doing anything that could injure them, right? So it goes beyond just safety and certain things, but it could be physical injury as well. Definitely mental injury, but physical injury as well. Watch what materials and content is available. So if it's not suitable for children, and generally children are 17 and under, it depends. They could be considered 13 under. Depends on what the regulations are for your state, whatever that may be, but generally minors are those under the age of 18 in the US. So if we're talking about US based businesses and communities, be very mindful of who's coming in and out, what's going on with the kids, what they're doing, and any materials and content that you have within the space that they're supposed to be. And then you want to be careful that if they're supposed to be in one room or one space, that they can't get access to spaces that are not intended, suitable, or safe for children. Okay, so be very mindful of that. And again, the rights, COPA, California. So here we go again. That is usually the one that we all look to in the US, the California law. And always, because these are minors, what are you doing? You are going to make sure that you get parental permissions, guardians of the children, that the legal guardians of these children. Okay, so be very mindful. They are a very big liability, but if you do allow children in your community, you have to. There is a must that you put those requirements and safety safeguards in place. Okay, so I would also let people know that your community could change up at any time. Okay, it could be something totally different, especially if there's a visual aspect to it. So if you change your community in any way, let your members know, especially if someone's buying into it, that things change. Hopefully it's for the better, but there may be numerous reasons why something may need to be updated, removed, right? So terms may be updated. Rooms may be renovated, right? That's a nice way of saying that you may change up how a room looks, okay? Rooms may be renovated periodically, right? Or what's here today. I know I used to like to change my home based on the seasons, right? We just switch out the different colors or something of like comforters or whatever. It looks like a totally different place. But you can do that, if somebody joins because they really love this room that had a pink couch in it, and then 2 weeks later that room with the pink couch is gone. Now they want their money back because it's not the community that they thought they joined. You need to say something to the effect that you're not joining this community because I have a pink couch. You are joining the overall community. So these are things that you have to say, that things may change, all right? And you don't necessarily have to tell them why, depending on what it is. But if it is something that is an integral part or reason why they joined, then that may be a different thing. I always like to say that resources may be removed, and sometimes you are actually removing them because they need to be updated because they're outdated or the like, or that you remove that access to another place or something like that. That give them reasons, be mindful of why you're doing that, and if that significant significantly changes what your offer was when they purchased it, be mindful of that. But in general, you can remove resources, let them know, say, hey, download this now because this might not be here tomorrow. Access to certain areas may change, right? Even if they are premium members, maybe they're not allowed to access a certain area that is for extra premium members or something like that. What is like it would be the platinum members or whatever. You can say that they may not be allowed to, that room has now been changed to something else. So the like, again, make sure it's not anything that removes what you said you were giving them and what they're paying for. Programming will change. That happens all the time. Maybe we might have Q&As and then we find that that isn't really beneficial for the community, then they're no longer Q&As. Do add value back in another manner, but I also say let people know ahead of time before you do too much of these changes if you can, as much time in advance as you can as well. All right. And I do let people know that the amenities, they may be removed or changed. So again, that goes back with like if you had live Q&A sessions, maybe you won't have live Q&A sessions anymore. Maybe you will have pre-recorded, someone could submit in a forum or the like, whatever questions they have, send it to you, whatever manner, and maybe you'll record it or the like, but there won't be any live Q&As. Then that could happen. Just let people know that things change, they will change, they may change, and what happens if they do change. All right. Very important, okay? Member agreements, all right? That you have member agreements. And they're not necessarily these big, long, thick documents, 500, even 20 PDF pages, right? What a member agreement is even when they sign and they purchase, there's something, again, you're telling them that they have to follow your policies. So that's one of the agreements, your code of conduct, your guidelines, and the like, that this is a part of their agreement. And depending on what you use to collect payments, that could be right away or before you collect payment, then you send them something and you're saying, this is what you're agreeing to. This is your member agreement. It could be a few sentences, it could be several pages, but you're just reinforcing your policies and the like. You communicate those rights and responsibility of members, and then you educate these members on what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do. Definitely, definitely, definitely include somewhere about these particular business damaging policies, refunds, and chargebacks. Very important. Okay. What happens if someone asks for a refund? What do you do if someone initiates a chargeback against your business? Harassment. All right. Because now we're talking about peace of mind. Okay. So you want to have an agreement, a policy on what happens if that happens and things of that like. Liability waivers, okay? Because now we're talking about health. Remember when I was talking about the disclaimers and I was talking about livelihood, life and death, things that deal with, your legal, your financial, your health, okay? So if you have liability waivers, you make sure, particularly again, we're going to go back to those who teach fitness classes, that you make sure that they also sign liability waivers to saying you can die from working out. I mean, it's supposed to help with your health, of course, but just things happen, okay? You might have a heart condition and the like. Okay, you want to make sure that they check in with their physician, make sure that they are working out at the level that they're taking or participating in a class that is at their level of fitness, okay? So things like that. All right. And it goes beyond liability for your health. This is just, it depends on your industry what the liability may be, but make sure you have that attached or within the agreement, and it's incorporated into the agreement overall. Privacy, what do you do with the information that you collect, you store, you share? All right. And again, you're going to say what actions you are not responsible for. And you definitely let them know that you are not responsible for their actions. Okay. All right. Another thing is collaborating with members. So this is another issue I love people to have in their thought process when they are strategizing on what they're doing with their community, how they're creating it, how they're growing it, how they are operating it. If you're collaborating with any of your members, you want to have clear written agreements and how this collaboration is going to work. And here's an example. Maybe you have members who are experts in something. So you're going to allow them to lead a workshop, okay? So you want to have a clear written agreement as to what their rights and responsibilities are. And that goes to what they're supposed to do, how much they're supposed to get paid, when they're supposed to show up. And if you give a workshop, well, I should say, if they give a workshop within your community, who owns the rights to it? Who can distribute it? Are you able to share that with your members? Does it stay within your community database? Does that member get to take that somewhere else, share it with someone else? And this is important too if they're just sharing a presentation. So say, excuse me, I'm just sharing this slide deck. Can I take this slide deck and share it in another community? But if you have a presentation and that presentation includes members from your community, some way that you can identify them, name, avatars, even faces, their voices, or anything like that, what are they allowed to do with that information? So you really want to have a clear written agreement on the distribution, the sharing, the rights of whatever they are collaborating, whatever content they are giving to you. And again, if they're getting paid for it, what's the compensation? So again, who owns what? Does this create a partnership of any type? What can be done with that creation? Who controls the creation? Who can make money off of it? And again, who has rights and what rights do they have? All right, so let's go back to designing your community. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So when your community is being designed, we're talking about that intellectual property, right? Who has rights to what? So if you, let's see, I'm going to look at this in a couple ways. So we're talking specifically about how your community is designed. So if someone else is designing it or your members are placing things within your community, remember there's that user generated content. You're allowing them to upload, some way place something in the community, then who has rights to what? And then what you do have, you protect those rights. Can they copy the aesthetics of the room or the copy that design and things like that, or what's inside of it? So we're specifically talking about the actual design, as in when I'm saying interior design of your community. You want to be realistic, but be diligent as well. So realistic is if you created a community and it looks amazing, a community, a room, a space within your community, and everyone's like, oh my God, this looks amazing. So say I have a listening lounge with like a couch and chairs, stereos, things that make it look like, it's a full party or something like that. Are you saying that someone cannot have that? Or is it the concept that you're saying that someone else can't have? Because, you do not have rights to concepts. But if you particularly designed it, and especially when I'm speaking to artists, or it's a photograph that maybe you've taken or the like, then you own the rights to it. They are not allowed to copy it and reuse it, make any type of derivative work with it, okay? But again, you want to be realistic about the rights you have into things. Is it a concept that anyone could create this exact same design? Maybe your couches are green and theirs are peach or something like that. So, be mindful. And if you're using AI, do know that you do not currently are not able to claim copyright to any of that design. And you always want to be cautious because make sure that you're not placing things in your community design, your space design, your rooms design that infringe on someone else's rights. Okay. So be mindful of that. Again, the laws aren't clear, they aren't specified, they're really not available, they haven't been settled. So be mindful of that. You talked earlier about having a disclaimer in your policies about the use of AI, but That is one that you can't claim rights to something that was generated by a AI software or something like that, you know. All right. This is particularly for Go Brunch. This was originally created in a workshop for Go Brunch, and that's the platform that I use and I love. So when you come to my community space, not the resource hub, but when you're in the community space where we're that immersive space where we're hanging out, that's Go Brunch. All right. So these are the things I would say you want to keep your brand classy as well as compliant. So if it's compliant, it's classy. If you're not compliant, you are not classy. So keep your community classy and compliant. Know what is going on in your community at all times. This doesn't apply to just immersive community. This, again, we were talking in the very, very beginning about whether your community is just something that is like a forum or chat style community. This applies. And then if you have that hybrid where maybe you have videos, classes, audio feeds, and text, you know, and there's interaction between the members and like it's a little bit more community based, and there could be maybe some direct messages between members or so, then you want to make sure again that you understand that this applies to that, and particularly if you have an immersive style community where it feels as if you all are literally in the same room. All right. So know what's going on regardless of whatever type of community you have. Monitor that community, have protocols in place, people in place. If you have a team, moderators, moderate that community at all times. Protect your people. Protect your people, resources, brand, which will ultimately protect your business. You have these policies that I just talked about, your limitation of liability, your waivers, your indemnification. So people will indemnify you from actions that they do, okay? Or things that they cause to happen, making it not your fault. They take full responsibility. Be mindful of governing law. You let them know that what you're doing is governed by the law of wherever you feel that territory should be. Most of the time, it's your resident, your business residency. But again, it could be under governing law. It just depends on the nature of your business and what is allowed. Okay. So do remember that it's not the platform. So it doesn't matter what platform you're on. If you're on GoBrunch, you're on Circle, you're on Mighty Networks, you're on something Heartbeat or the like. You see, I'm trying not to say Facebook. You're on Facebook. You're on Instagram. That's the meta thing. Who else has something? TikTok, right? Or the like. Uh, they're not responsible. YouTube's the big one, right? It's a little less community style sometimes, but they are not responsible for what goes on within your community, and a lot of times for the content that you distribute. That's why they have those takedowns, that if someone tells them something goes on, they stop it. But generally, they just allow you to build your home on their land. Okay. So what happens in your home, they're not responsible for, right? They just gave you a space to build your home on. And you have to think about it that way. What goes on in your home, your business, your place of business, your little physical location, which we're taking as an analogy, but your virtual location that you've built on that land that they've rented out to you, you are responsible. All right. If you want more tips, well, you're in the community and you're viewing this, you're going to look through the resource library. Right now, we have an amazing platform that we use where you can search through, put in a search term, and it should search through the resources that are there. So you definitely want to utilize that feature. Also, you know, I'm available, particularly depending on if you have the all access, um, I guess, not a pass, but if you're able to get full access and it's access to me, you can ask me questions in whatever manner that is. We always have, regardless of your membership level, Q&A sessions. So please ask if you have any questions, and that resource library or different resources that I have available, utilize, utilize, utilize. I create this for you. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you succeed. And the way that you do that is by legally protecting your business and brand. Otherwise, oop, see, we got stuck anyway. There we go. All right, this is the old one, but hopefully you have joined my newsletter by this point. But if you are viewing this, or maybe it's free access, not necessarily fully behind any gated wall or restricted, then I want to make sure that you join my newsletter and you visit tanyafisher.com. We do have an amazing resource library, a resource hub, which is forever expanding. And I do things like this. I just create this guide. We talk about virtual communities all the time, but I want to make sure that there is a resource guide for you that is a little bit more comprehensive. So these are the things that I always love to do. So make sure, if you haven't already and you're viewing this, to either join the community or upgrade your membership, and definitely join my newsletter and check out the website at tanyafisher.com. On that note, thank you, thank you, thank you again for watching or listening to this if you're listening on the audio feed. And I do wish you optimal success. Check out all those resources. If there's something else you want to learn about, know about, then please, again, there's several spaces, comments, Q&A sessions, and the like. So get in touch so that we can get those answers, those questions answers, or those answers to you, so that you can protect your brand and ultimately have success for as long as you want, right? So long-term success. Take care. We'll chat soon. Be sure to check out all the resources available to you.